And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Tough Dog Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harris Arena, alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley. No Kobe Pierce today. He will hopefully be back with us next Wednesday. Dan, how are you doing in this wonderful Wednesday evening?
I'm exhausted. It has been a long day, and then standing for 3 hours outside in the heat didn't make it any better. So I'm exhausted, but I'm here. I'm going to battle through for you, Harrison.
Hey, it's a good day to battle through it. Dan was at, I believe you're talking about Mill Creek's football practice today.
I was.
Uh, I totally feel that. It has been quite hot the last few days. Was over at Prince Avenue, looking at a running back target for the Georgia Bulldogs. Who also was there was Josh Crawford, Georgia's running back coach. So, hey, spring football is back here in the state of Georgia. High school teams around the country, around the state, have kicked off their spring practice as they prepare for next season. Dan, we got two hot topics today that we're going to jump right into the action of the NFL draft. Hot topic number one. It's an NFL heavy hot topic today. Would you rather get the guy you want in the draft or sign a great free agent? I guess put on your GM cap for a little bit.
So this is kind of fun, right? Because when you have a draft selection, I mean, everybody feels like there's always the sure thing. But for being honest, there's no such thing as a sure thing in the NFL draft. So when you get the guy that you want, you have all these aspirations and hopes that he's going to be great. However, if you sign a free agent, you know exactly what you're getting. And I'm not talking about like a 35-year-old free agent. I'm talking about like, second contract type guy, prime guy where, you're able to go get him. So that's what we're talking about. Now, I come in on the draft side of it because I like cheap labor and cheap controllable labor. And if you think about it, and you have to think that way because of the way that cap comes together. But every so often, it is really, really nice to go get that shiny toy in free agency. But if you're going to build long term and you're going to build a successful franchise, you have to hit in the draft. So I'm going to side on I would rather get the guy that I really want in the draft than the shiny free agent, although that shiny free agent can make a hell of a difference in a hurry.
Yeah, so that was my first question that I had with this one was, are we talking great free agent as in like great reputation, or are we talking about the actual great reputation, great as subjective? Because like if we're comparing a 36-year-old edge rusher, let's go for example, he's not 36 years old. Let's go for example, Leonard Floyd, familiar name. The Falcons signed him this offseason. Would you rather have Leonard Floyd this offseason as a free agent signing, or would you rather have Jalen Walker and James Pierce? I believe most of y'all, including Dan, would say, give me Jalen Walker in in the NFL draft. And I guess that's kind of where I sit on it. I think it really comes down to situation. If you're in win now mode, give me the great free agent. Give me the guy that we know can do it. Give me the guy that's proven and has produced in the NFL before. And that's the guy you want to go win now with. If you have some time and you don't need this guy to be a hit right now, then give me the draft guy. Give me the rookie you really want. Give me the guy you're going to have for 4 to 5 years. If it's a first-round pick, you're going to have him for 5 years because you can opt into that fifth-year player option or team option. That's kind of where I stand on Dan. In the case of the Falcons, you've been piecemealing together the edge rusher position for so long now. Go ahead and give me the rookie. Doesn't mean you can't go get the free agent, but go ahead and give me the surefire rookie that you really want and really start to build that position out to be a strength. Not only now, but in the future as well. Dan, hot topic number 2. Who were you happiest to see get drafted? I'm afraid we're gonna have the same answer here.
I want
I'm
you
gonna
to
take
go
the
first.
first guy. Yeah, thank you. Because I was gonna say I'm going first here, Dan. Because I'm afraid we're going the same one here. I mean, without question, maybe one of the best stories of the NFL draft. Maybe there's two. There's two. The first being Jack Beach, the TCU wide receiver whose brother was tragically killed in the terrorist attack that happened on January 1st, was New Year's Day, New Year's Day in New Orleans this year. Really happy to see him complete his dream and continue on, bring a spotlight to his brother. Really, really happy to see that for him and his family. I mean, what more needs to be said about that? Number 2, Dan Jackson. Every time we get these stories, this, for lack of a better term, rags to riches in terms of, hey, This is a walk-on. And when I say walk-on, guys, this guy is a true walk-on. This isn't no preferred walk-on. This is not, hey, we want you on the team. We can't give you a scholarship, but we're going to give you, we're going to have you preferred walk-on. We want you to come on the team with the understanding that, hey, you may not play right away. You may not ever play, but we're going to have you on the roster. This is a guy who, like Dan and I were in college, came to Georgia right now and tried out. Went to the walk-on tryouts they hold once a year and made the team. Not only did he make the team, he went on to have a hell of a career in terms of playing meaningful snaps down the stretch for Georgia. Started in his senior year. Dan, I have memories of Dan Jackson as early as 2021 when he blocked the punt versus Arkansas that year. I also remember him being in the slot having to guard Jamison Williams at times in the SEC championship game. I don't know what more needs to be said. It shouldn't surprise anybody that Dan Jackson got drafted, because when you turn on the tape and you see that man fly, you knew it was going to happen. I believe he ran sub 4.4 at his pro day. I wish we got to see him at the combine, get some verified testing numbers on him, because he would have been the star of the show. Extremely excited to see Dan Jackson get his chance at the NFL. Dan, what say you?
Well, I'm not going to go there because that's the easy one for me. But I'll go with two. I don't remember what his name was. He was I believe he's a defensive tackle from Oregon, got drafted.
Harmon.
I believe by the Steelers. And tragically, I mean, his mother was sick. Everybody knew that. So it's not tragic that she passed away, but it is, because I hate that for him. But I'm so glad he got drafted where he was, because he had an opportunity to tell his mother he had just gotten drafted. And it was almost like she was hanging on just for that news, because right after he told her, she passes away. And I'm not saying that if he got drafted the next day that she still wouldn't have been there. I don't, there's no way to know the answer to that. But to me, that one really hit home. I mean, listen, all of us, I think the majority of us who watched and listened and whatever, that bond you have with your mother is very special, especially when you're coming from a situation where, you're doing everything for her. So that really struck a chord with me. And then my honorable mention one, his name is Jahdae Barron. And you're like, well, he's a first round pick. Okay. Well, he's from the University of Texas. Gets drafted by the Denver Broncos. And I don't know if you saw the story or not, but when he's on the phone, he asks the general manager for the Broncos to please put him on speakerphone. And so he puts him on speakerphone, and he thanks everybody in the room for blessing him with this opportunity and for changing his family's life. I mean, so you've got on one hand the kid who was able to tell his mother that he got drafted before she passes. That's up there. Like, that's up there. I'm so glad that happened. And then the second one is just an outstanding show of character by thanking everybody in the organization. And then honorable mention, and I mentioned this in our group chat, the kid from Kentucky that got drafted by the Bills. If you watched the first round at all, he was the one in the blue jacket, if I'm not mistaken, the blue jacket, who was up on his feet celebrating every single player that got drafted, high-fiving, hugging, running over. Like, and this guy wasn't the guy who was drafted like 1 or 2 right now, so he had to wait to the back end of the first round to get drafted. But his just enthusiasm, just pure joy for others, and I think you're seeing a theme here with my answer, is the selflessness, right? In a draft that was kind of marred by, for a lack of a better term, arrogance, perceived or otherwise, to see the good nature of some of these people coming out was really outstanding. And of course, Dan Jackson, but you took that one. So I knew you were going to go Dan Jackson. I knew I couldn't go Malachi. So I had to come up with something else, but that means a lot to me.
Well, Malachi and Dan Jackson, rightfully so for you, are two guys that you've known for a long time. You covered both of them. You called both of their games. Like, that meant a lot. That's like seeing them. That's like next year when Caleb Downs goes in the top 5, top 10. That Malachi, maybe Caleb's going to hit home on a deeper level, but correct me if I'm wrong. Malachi and Dan were like a kid you coached that
Well, no,
close,
I didn't coach either one of them, and they don't
but
know. Yeah, they
you
don't.
knew them.
Yeah, I mean, if with separation that we've had now, they probably wouldn't recognize me at all because they're out of place or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Dan Jackson was always fun to cover, and Malachi was just different. And then my nephew goes to school at Jefferson, so you got to hear a lot of stories about him. Just an amazing kid he was. I mean, outside of being a crazy athlete, I'm just the character of him was incredible. And then the toughness with Dan Jackson has always just been something that was incredible. Like always doubted, and just always coming out of the woodwork to, or not, that's not the right way to say that. Just coming out of the shadows to grab the spotlight. But, very happy for both.
Absolutely. I mean, I just think with Dan Jackson, I think we all came into the year thinking, hey, Dan Jackson's going to be your starting safety until KJ Bolden beats him out. KJ Bolden didn't necessarily beat Dan Jackson out. Dan Jackson didn't go away.
Yeah, I mean,
KJ
it
Bolden
happened.
kind of happened, but Dan Jackson never went away. KJ Bolden never went away. All three were playing together. Malachi Starks, KJ Bolden, Dan Jackson, all playing together, all playing at a high level this past year for Georgia. It would have been crazy to think. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was listening to Coach Saban talk about Caleb Downs on the NFL draft when they were talking about how the best player from Ohio State, the best 2 players aren't even eligible to go to the draft. I'm like, man, what that secondary could have been if Caleb Downs did end up going to UGA. That would have been insane just to think about. And having Malachi
But then you
Starks.
probably don't get KJ Bolden.
You probably don't. You're probably right. And the legend that is Dan Jackson in terms of from a tryout walk-on to a starting member of Georgia's defense who was very productive this past year, maybe isn't as bright, isn't as good as a tale as it is now. But with that, we've kind of naturally segued into our main segment of the show. It might be a quicker show, but we'll see. We'll see how far we go here. This is basically more of a NFL draft recap, and I know it came on a Wednesday midweek, but that's given us a little bit of time to digest exactly what's happened. Dan, the first thing that I really want to dive into here is the fact that for the third straight year, the headline here is Georgia is a true just NFL factory. If there is a G League, pun intended, for the NFL, University of Georgia is a part of it at this point. Georgia sent 13 players to get drafted on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 13 players. It's second most, only behind Ohio State this year, who are at 14. Georgia now holds the all-time record, not only the all-time record for most players drafted from a single university within a single draft class in 2022 at 15. They now have the fourth most all-time. This past year, Georgia put 13 in, which is the fourth most all-time drafted from a single team. That's the main takeaway here, Dan. My second takeaway, and this is what we alluded to last week. Georgia puts 13 players in the draft, and you have 3 first-round picks. You have 3 offensive linemen drafted within the top 95 picks, and you just can't help but sit here and think, what a missed opportunity last season was. That's my main takeaway. I don't know about you. I find myself catching myself thinking, man, they did this after what you would think it was a down year.
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of your sentiment. My major takeaway for just for the University of Georgia was, how do they continue to pump this many guys into the NFL and not see a dramatic fall off? Now, listen, we all understand the recruiting is really, really good, right? But at some point, even the great Alabama had a downswing, right? Where, it wasn't, what did they lose? Ended up losing like 2 or 3 games in the season, I think, at one point, and like the sky was falling. Holy cow. Maybe this last year for Georgia was it, but then to still put 13 guys in the league, that's the thing that it's very hard for me to understand, that Georgia is able to maintain the level of excellence that they have while producing so many NFL talents because the talent has thinned out. I mean, I think everything you've watched, every podcast you've watched, every mainstream media thing the main narrative right now is that talent is more equally distributed now than it has been in quite a while. Obviously Georgia still does a great job. Ohio State still does a great job. True. But you would think that at some point there would be a little bit of a dip, like a 4-loss season somewhere in there. And they've just been able to maintain. And you have to give a lot of credit to not just Kirby Smart, but the entire staff for developing and still going out on the trail and getting what you need to be successful. It's remarkable. It's a completely different day and age than when Alabama was able to stack 5s on 5s and they couldn't go anywhere. I mean, it's basically open free agency right now, and Georgia's been able to maintain this level of excellence. I think this draft I think it illustrates what a great job that staff has done.
I think it adds to the notion that Kirby came out with when his interview with Josh Payton that, last year was his best coaching job. Maybe it takes away from him a little bit because you had 13 draft picks. You're like, man, how could you not get a little bit farther? How could you not do a little bit better? Which I think is the sentiment I see a lot across social media right now is, man, Georgia really missed an opportunity with a really talented team. Ohio State was the national champion and the most talented team, which the NFL draft backed it up. 14 players, continues the trend. The national champion ends up having the most players drafted. That's not a coincidence. I don't think that is the NFL trying to set a narrative here. I just think that's how it is. The national champion each year is going to have the most players drafted because they have the best players. But Georgia wasn't far behind.
Yeah, we came into the season saying that was the most loaded roster in all of college football. So I don't think either one of the people on this show that shocks.
Yeah. I believe Dan was saying it as early as last May about Ohio State. I believe it was as early as last May. We could probably dig into the archives and go find it as early as last May. And that was the narrative. And throughout the regular season, we were questioning, man, when are they going to show up? When are they going to play like we thought they were going to play? And it wasn't until really the playoffs they showed up and played. They left, as they said, quote, no doubt, which they kind of stole that for somebody else, but that's neither here nor there. Dan, I guess let's break. I got some more stats for you. Gathered these up. This was one that was all over the internet after it happened, after day one. Kirby Smart has more first-round draft picks, 20, than he does losses at Georgia, 19. Second one, this is crazy. This is courtesy of Brent Rowland of UJSports.com. 31 of the 37 Bulldogs who played on that 2021 national title team have been drafted. 31 of 37. I would love to see, of those 6 that did not get drafted, how many are still in school, and if there are any. I believe they're close, probably running out of eligibility. I think if there is anyone with COVID years, this is probably going to be it for them in terms of eligibility. That's a pretty high rate. The next one, Dan, which kind of furthermore illustrates what you were talking about in terms of just their way of continuing to produce. Georgia's had 46 players drafted in the last 4 years. 13 of those are first-round picks.
Another takeaway, just to illustrate this, you're talking about Ohio State putting 14 guys in, right, which is one short of Georgia's record. But go look at the year that Georgia put in 15. How many of those guys were early first-round picks? Just for some perspective, the first Ohio State player selected was Mbeka Mbuku, or I know how to say his name. I don't know why I just butchered it.
You got it. It's Emeka Egbuka. You're close.
Yeah. He goes at 19. Just for shits and giggles, they like to talk about how bad Michigan was this year. Michigan had 3 guys selected before the first Ohio State guy came off the board. That's pretty funny. I mean, for them to put that many guys in the NFL, your first pick isn't until 19. It's kind of weird.
That kind of sounds.
It's just a weird little thing. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean anything. It's a weird factoid.
Did your stepfather send you that?
No, but if you try to tell my stepfather anything, he'll tell you he already knew.
I was wondering if maybe you had some Michigan propaganda being fed to you. anti-Ohio State.
Listen, for the last 20 years, I've been just how much
He's
Ohio
heard it.
State sucks.
He's all of it.
Yeah, I just
it really is, Dan. It is crazy to see that and to hear that. I mean, shoot. Speaking on Ohio State, I know we're getting a little off track in terms of talking about the Buckeyes. It's crazy they didn't break the record because they had, I think it was 13 through 5 rounds. 13 through 5. That's insane.
Will Howard was the last one. Is that right?
I believe Will Howard was the last one. Which, credit to him. He played tremendously in the college football playoffs. Tremendously. He stepped up and played at a high level and was a big reason why they went and won it all. I mean, because if he played like he did in the regular season for most of that regular season, they wouldn't have won it. They wouldn't have won it.
He's got a great chance to play because Pittsburgh has nobody on their roster.
Yeah, I mean, they're
who they have, Mason Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph. Yep, Mason Rudolph. And God, Will Howard, and who else? I don't
think there is anybody else. I'm sure they have a camp arm somewhere, but
yeah, I'm curious to see what happens there in terms of whether or not Aaron Rodgers does go there. Let's see. I'm trying to see if they have if I could find their quarterback room. Dan, we've been asking. All right, so I guess to transition real quick as I look this up. Last year, I popped up on my Facebook memories. 1 year ago today, you and I had a Facebook memory. It was our post-draft show last year. And I didn't go back and watch it. But the rant was Dan Kiley talking about the pick of Michael Penix. Now, as a reminder, Dan didn't dislike Michael Penix. Dan liked Penix. What he disliked was you paid a quarterback $40 million and then you go draft a guy at number 9 when you're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. And as Orvalowski said, what we talked about pre-draft, no, this might not have even been pre-draft. It was between me and you. Orvalowski said true Super Bowl contenders don't draft quarterbacks in the first round. And it was kind of proven right last year with the Falcons. Now, a year later, if we had a Dan rant, Dan would rant about how the Falcons drafted a Georgia player in the first round for the first time ever.
Yeah, I don't know that I would rant about it. I would be excited about it. You know, this is the one thing that blows my mind. Okay, so do you know who the owner was of the Falcons before? From the beginning to when he sold it to Arthur Blank?
No.
His name is Rankin Smith, the Smith family. Do you happen to know where Rankin Smith...
Wait. He went to Georgia because his name is on a building. His name's on the athletic center.
That's exactly where I was going. This man was a UGA graduate, and he did not draft a Georgia player. I mean, that's insane. Anyway,
I didn't connect those two dots there. That's crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm glad that they did. It's not that they just drafted a Georgia player, right? They got the right one. You know, like when they did that shit, so Akeem Dent was the highest they ever drafted, which was in the 3rd round, and he didn't stick. And then last year, they took somebody, I can't remember who it was. They took last year a defensive lineman,
Aurora.
No, from Georgia.
From Georgia, Zion Loeb.
Yeah, just to shut people up, they took a Georgia player and then they cut him like a week into camp just to be like, see, he's not any good. Like, bro, come on. But the irony of it is almost everybody I know, when that pick was on the board, was basically on the edge of their seat going, please, dear God, don't F this up. It's perfect. Everything happened perfectly. It is, by some estimations, the best player on the board at that position. It's either him or Abdul Carter. Some places, I think it was Ian Rappaport had Jalen Walker higher. I can't remember who it was. One of the guys from NFL Network had him higher. It didn't matter. So you had just for the sake of argument, let's just say he's the best player at that position, except for Abdul Carter. He fits the biggest need that you have. And it's the one thing that your fan base wants more than anything. So it was like the perfect trifecta of, please, dear God, don't F this up. And, the funniest thing was, I think Matt Chernoff he tweeted out right before, he's like, oh, they're going to Falcon this one. But they didn't. They got it right. So it's not only did they draft a Georgia player, but they got the right one. Like finally they got the right one. And something that you and I talked about before the draft, because you were, correct me if I'm wrong, but you really liked Mike Green, the edge rusher from Marshall, right? Or that's the one you wanted.
No, I liked. I liked a few edge rushers, but I wouldn't say I was out and out for, I guess, an edge.
Right.
I guess from what perspective though are we talking about? From
Yeah,
like a
so
Falcons perspective? Or?
no, because my point to you, because you were talking about there was a potential we could draft a linebacker from Alabama, and my point to you was I would rather be wrong on a kid from Alabama or Georgia than be wrong on a player from Marshall, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, if you're gonna be wrong, at least you could stand up on the table and be like, for God's sakes, he came from the University of Georgia, who has put 43 players in the NFL draft. The damn Philadelphia Eagles just won a Super Bowl with like 19 of them on their roster. Like, what did you expect? Like, whereas, oh yeah, passed on the kid from Georgia, took the kid from Marshall, and he sucks. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how many times in the past have we taken the kid from East, West, South Missouri State and like, oh, wow, look, he didn't pan out. Like, no shit. And then here we got all the kids from the SEC that are just littering the rosters, and we didn't have any of them. So that's what my rant would be about, thank God we didn't pick the kid from the I'm smarter than you school, and we just took a flyer, or we took a chance that maybe the kid who plays in the best conference at the best school is going to be pretty good. Cyberbullying works. Absolutely.
It did in the Falcons case, because I mean, good God, the media circus surrounding that franchise and the lead up to the draft, especially after the pro day, despite the fact they had their entire organization in Athens, there was just a negative tone to the coverage of it, specifically within local media. Everyone's like, oh, this is just all for show. This is all for PR. Like, they're not actually going to do it, despite them showing everybody there. You remember that? That was kind of the sentiment.
And it was funny to find out that the entire time they thought the only Georgia Bulldog that would be on the board for them to take at that position was Mykel Williams. They never anticipated Jalen Walker to be on the board. So, like, and you even mentioned it because you were there at the pro day that they were circling around Mykel Williams. And they did talk to Jalen, if I'm not mistaken.
They talked to Jalen, but Jalen didn't even work out.
Yeah, but
it was Mykel.
But Mykel is the one that they wanted to see, and Mykel was the one they thought they really had a chance at. And then when you heard Jeff Ulbrich talk about not his son, but when he talked about the draft situation, he talked about how they had some draft grades on people, and then when Jalen Walker was there, it was one of those things where he was going to knock somebody out if that wasn't the pick. So I'm glad to hear it.
My favorite video of the weekend, not the prank call, obviously. My favorite one was it the Xavier Watts pick? The Falcons dropped that video when they were talking to Xavier Watts, and you hear bang on the door as Raheem's on the phone, banging on the door, and it's Ulbrich saying, "Can I come in yet?" And they let him in, and he's the happiest man alive because they got a safety.
I thought that was the Pierce pick.
Was it the Pierce? I forget. I thought it was the Watts pick.
Yeah, it was the Pierce pick.
It was the Pierce. That dude was excited. I wish we saw his reaction when they took Jalen Walker, because Walker, to me, is the one he's going to have the most fun with scheming around, because Walker isn't your traditional out-and-out edge rusher or your traditional inside linebacker. Walker's going to command his own role. I mean, let's not forget, people. Jalen Walker is the same player come preseason camp this year. Kirby Smart said he's the one player that they had to get uncomfortable with. They had to be uncomfortable using him in ways that hadn't used a player before. Because despite the lofty, continuous comparisons to Micah Parsons, which they both play similar roles in terms of they can play inside and out, Jalen Walker's 2 inches shorter than Micah Parsons, which I think is the biggest critique of Jalen Walker right now. Is people don't know if he can handle going up against bigger offensive linemen, which to that I say, well, he did it throughout college. And it's not like he just burst onto the scene, came out of nowhere, Mike Green came out of left field to me, had a 15-sack season. Jalen Walker had been showing flashes dating back to his freshman year. You got to turn on the tape versus TCU in the national championship game. Jalen Walker's showing you his bend. showing you his twitchiness, showing you his speed. He knows how to win. It wasn't until this past year that he really put it all together, but it's also because he finally got the snaps to do it.
Right. And I think you could say with Jalen Walker that he had a better trajectory than Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker was, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but like to me, it was just like here and then bam, right? Just shot up to the ceiling. And Jalen Walker was just this, just always going up. I don't know. I'm happy. I'm like, and you know, it was funny because you put in there like, oh, this is what a draft with Dan being happy feels like.
Dude, that was really the moment. That really is like just the summary. Our group chat talking to Dan. I have not had one post-draft phone call with Dan where this guy's upset. The only time that he was annoyed at all throughout this weekend was when the prank call overshadowed everything, and rightfully so.
Right. Well, we're not going to go into the prank call. That's just stupid shit. I don't understand why it's such a big deal, but whatever.
It's been paid more attention to than I can care for at this point. So what's done is done in that on that case. Dan, let's talk about. I guess you brought this up, and I wanted to hit on this because I didn't realize it. So from a Cowboys perspective, obviously at 12, you know, I was thinking, man, there's so many guys on the board. Who the hell are they going to take? They had two needs, and this is I'm going to relate this to the Falcons. Just give me a minute. You know, the Cowboys needed an offensive lineman. They needed an edge rusher. They needed a receiver. They needed a running back. There's so many ways. And you go look just from that perspective right now on who's on the board. Jalen Walker was on the board. Matthew Golden was on the board. Tyler Booker was on the board. Walter Nolan was on the board. Shamar Stewart was on the board. John Day Barron was on the board. Like everybody that you could want in this draft in the first round was on the board. Then you go down to the Falcons just 3 picks later. Number 15. The two guys before you, or the three guys before you, are Tyler Booker, Kenneth Grant, Tyler Warren. The only guy that the Falcons had circled on their board and without a doubt would have taken, not Abdul Carter that went before the Falcons picked, was Mykel Williams. We know that. You just talked about that. But look who else was on the board. You talk about don't Falcon this up. Jalen Walker was on the board. Walter Nolan was on the board. Shamar Stewart was on the board. Obviously, Mike Green was on the board. A lot of receivers were on the board. They could have easily went somewhere else. They could have easily went a different direction because the Panthers put a whole monkey wrench in this thing when they took McMillan at 8. That was
Right.
where Jalen Walker was projected to go the most that I had seen. It was at worst the Panthers at 8. And boom. I mean, from the jump, chaos.
It was an interesting draft. I mean, it's been a while since we saw a lot of movement. But then, I mean, for what it's worth, the mock drafts, most of them were fairly accurate. But man, there were some real misses. I mean, in this year's draft, there were some real misses from the experts that I'm not talking about like they went 2 or 3 spots later. I'm talking about rounds later. Like 3 months, Shedeur Sanders was the number 1 pick by a lot of people, a lot of experts. Mel Kiper, I mean, he let everybody know it. Yeah, obviously, but I mean, everybody had him going in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike Green goes 58 or something like that. Or I mean, it was like
He slid.
Yeah, it was. And listen, those off the field issues, man, they are a real thing. But there's another one. There's somebody else that slid too. Another one that was the corner from Michigan,
Will Johnson.
Will Johnson. Yeah, I mean, just some real slides. And you know, typically there's one, but not anything like we've seen this year.
No.
But also, yeah, I thought a great point Chris Carter made was just that these kids are making so much money now coming out of college that like they have a different attitude. It's just different. So we'll see how it goes from here on out.
I had never seen in pre-draft coverage, like I saw on social media from people I respect in the industry and all that, like people who I follow in terms of their draft coverage. I had never seen a draft in recent time where there were so many just questions of, does this guy love football? Like, do these guys really want it? Like, there were people who were coming on to social media into their draft coverage and saying, I've been hearing that, Team X has had the most players marked off their board ever because they're concerned that the guy doesn't like football or that he has character concerns. I've never heard it so often be brought up in a single draft class about, different, it's not just one person, it's been multiple where you just hear, does he love football? Is this just, hey, I'm here for the big payday, and then boom, we're done. There's no need to work for it anymore.
And we've never had a coach as vocal as Brian Daboll about trade secrets. What happens in the room, basically in the room, he has had no problem letting people know what happened in the room with some of the guys that he brought in there. There's being example. I am shocked that a current NFL football coach would be willing to talk that cavalier about a draft prospect. I don't think we've ever seen that before. I can't recall. Maybe I'm wrong. Man, there's probably an example. But
I can't think of one.
I've never seen a head coach come out that just with that much conviction and be like, "Oh yeah, we've marked him off our board immediately." Oh, look, wow.
Yeah, I mean, because the standard operating answer, "Hey, coach, why'd you pass on this guy?" Oh, we really liked who we got. That's nothing against him. This guy's a great football player. But we were just really excited to have this guy that we got. That's the standard answer. You never get the truth. You're always having to read in between the lines. You're always having to, hear, sources close to the situation say X, X, and X. They didn't like this guy because of X, X reason, X, Y. Never heard it come out and straight up say it.
The one that really should, and they didn't say what team it was, but the guy came out and said that they showed Shedeur Sanders one of his negative plays at Colorado. And they said that we don't like this. Like, explain this. We don't like this. And he's like, if you don't like it, don't draft me. Like, that explains everything you need to know.
Well, look, and then there's people, you talk about his slide, and we won't go very deep on this because I do want to go back to the Georgia players real quick and talk about some of the later round picks. There are people talking about, what was the point? Oh, his combine interview with the media where he talked about, don't draft me if you're not ready to change your franchise's culture. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, Colin Cowherd was all about it. He's the one that was telling the story about the negative play, and he said, just don't draft me then. I was just like, I can't wrap my head around being in that place. But like you said, that's neither here nor there. Now, of the 13 players, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to change this up a little bit. Of the 13 players that got drafted out of the University of Georgia, in your opinion, which player has the best opportunity to be successful right away?
Damn it, boy. I assume we're marking people off the board in terms of, hey, because the obvious three answers are right there.
Yeah, like we're not going to take Jalen because, it makes sense. I don't even know if you want to go Michael in San Francisco because that seems ready-made for him to be. I don't just whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. It's an open-ended question. Who do you think's got the best chance to be successful right away?
I mean, to me, and I guess success can be somewhat subjective here because there's really no stats in terms of maybe one or two. I think the Medi already made one in terms of just, hey, he fits a need for them. He fills a hole, and he's going to a team that really needed help right there in that spot. How could it not be Jared Wilson? I'm looking at the guys post day one. Mm-hmm. Tate Ratledge, we talked about. Tate Ratledge, off film, we talked about, hey, that's a good fit for him. Going to go play with Dan Campbell. Going to go play in a line where he's going to be able to run block all day long. Good fit there. But Jared Wilson, to me, you talk about filling a need, an obvious need. I mean, there's no question to me, Jared Wilson's their starting center, and that's what they're banking on. They are fully committed to the number 95 overall pick, being the starting center, filling in the void of David Andrews. I think that's one for me right now in terms of stepping in and finding day one success. In terms of now, I could go another direction here, Dan, if you want me to.
No. I want this one. Before
Okay.
you take it from me, you have a guy who is a extremely high-level player who just walked into a locker room that is one of the best defenses in the NFL, and he's
Where are
going
you
to be
going?
the starting safety. Malachi Starks is a freaking Baltimore Raven.
He took the damn day one player.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. You look at, I mean, because like the Falcons are not a great team. The 49ers were a great team. They've lost a lot of people. We hope it works out. But you look at a guy who is walking in and he is surrounded by stars everywhere. Like he doesn't have to be, like he is not the big, they didn't put the bat signal in the air for Malachi Starks. Like, oh my God, we need a savior. They're just like, hey, bro, you get to play on one of the best defenses in the freaking world and just like be awesome with us. I mean, you talking about no-brainer. Holy hell. And the funniest part was we talked about it before the draft. We're like, the Baltimore Ravens are going to take Malachi Starks. He's going to fall to him, and they're just going to plug him in, and they're just going to be awesome. And then it happened. And you were like, but I mean, we specifically called this one out, and it just perfect.
We talked about it the day before. You brought me that scenario that you saw in the mock, that Malachi going to Baltimore, and I'm like, man, why is it every year somebody falls to them and they're just Mr. Consensus? Hey, I don't care if it's a need. We're going BPA. We're getting this guy because everybody else wants to pass on him. But hey, we think he's a good football player. And that's exactly what Malachi Starks is. He's a damn good football player.
And then
him and Kyle Hamilton. Yeah, and then Mike Green, which if they can straighten out Mike Green in terms of, hey, we're going to take the character concerns and we're going to make sure he's in a good spot and he can be successful. He can just focus on football. He's probably going to be a damn good player over there in Baltimore. Yeah, I mean, Malachi Starks is a great shout there. I pulled him off my board because I thought that went without saying. But
maybe he did. I just wanted to say it.
Yeah, it had to be said. It had to be said. In terms of everybody else, I'm going to address this. And I'll go solo shot for this. So if you want to disagree, you can disagree privately. I loved reading through the reactions on social media when this guy went off the board, because you could tell who's been paying attention and who hasn't. When Arian Smith got drafted, number 110 overall by the New York Jets, yes, it was earlier than even I was expecting. But no, I am not shocked Arian Smith got drafted, guys. He ran a 4.36, 4.37, which we already knew he was fast. I mean, if you've been watching, even if you lived under a rock and you've seen maybe him play 2 games, you knew Arian Smith has burners. Arian Smith had the potential to be an X factor with his speed. We knew that. All right. Maybe he's not the most consistent catcher in terms of may not have the best hands, which I don't know if it's the hands or if it's just mental at this point, because there's been just all compounding on the other. But you go watch him play, and there's 2 reasons here. Beyond speed. Speed's the one thing you can't teach. I believe Dan said it a million times here. Then there's the 2 other things, which differentiates him from other players that were in the receiving room even last year and even before last year. People ask, why does Arian Smith keep getting on the field if he keeps dropping balls in big situations? Well, I can tell you why. Because he was a willing run blocker. And not just willing, he was one of those guys that was going to do whatever it took to complete his assignment. He was going to go sniff. He's going to put his nose in the dirt if it meant having to go take on a 260-pound edge rusher, because he has to pin him. He has to go hit him and ear hole him and pin him. And it may not work out for Arian Smith, but he's going to do it. That's the difference. And I won't call anyone out by name specifically, because I'm obviously not in the room, but on tape, you can see the difference. When Arian's making the block, this happens. It doesn't get blown up and there's a fumble. But when he's not in, it gets blown up. Second thing, Arian Smith, special teams demon. Maybe not punt return or maybe not kick return, but he's a gunner on special teams. And I believe he was a gunner for all 4 years that he was at Georgia, was a gunner on special teams for them. And there's one thing about the NFL. If you want to get drafted and maybe you're not the best prospect, maybe there's so many holes in your game as a prospect, the one thing you can do that can exponentially increase your chance of getting drafted in the NFL, be a player in special teams. That's how you make rosters. That's how a guy like Matthew Slater plays 18 years or however many years he played in New England, because he was on special teams and he played it his entire career. So, talking about guys I was happy to see get drafted, Arian Smith, happy you got drafted, dude. You deserve it. I know there was a lot of criticism throughout the time. Hey, us ourselves included, there were some frustrating drops, some, obvious reasons. But when he did make that one play, when he did bring in that catch, and you did see his speed, there was no doubting why he was going to have a chance to go play in the NFL, and he's going to have a chance to play for a little bit, because he can make an entire career out of being a gunner on special teams. You're muted. It's not me today, boys and girls. It's not me today.
This is why I don't ever mute my mic. But more than that, it's more than that. Like going back to what you said that I say all the time is you can't coach speed. It's one of those things you either have or you don't have. And
hell yeah, you get a sneeze button.
He is remarkably fast. I mean, he's not just fast; he's remarkably fast, and that's the one thing that I think irked a lot of Georgia fans. Is one, he couldn't stay on the field, but then two, like drops. But you knew at any point there was a chance he could take the top off and just score on one play. It didn't matter if we were on the 1 yard line, on this side, or the 50-yard line. There was a chance that if he got the ball in his hands, he was going to score because he was that fast. And regardless of the drops, that is something that enamors the NFL. And the one thing that every coach has in common, it doesn't matter whether it's Little League or it's the NFL, the one thing that every coach has in common is they think they can fix the problem. Like, oh, I understand that it didn't work out here, but he comes and plays for me. That won't happen. So he's going to get an opportunity. I hope to God that it works out for him. I hope that he can hold on to the football. I hope that he can stay healthy. If he can do those things, you're right. He could have a great career. He could potentially have a great, literally a great career in the NFL where he puts up monster numbers just because of the speed he has. Just got to be able to catch the ball and stay healthy.
Yeah,
but you can't coach speed.
No, and you really can't coach size either. That's why we see some of these raw, underdeveloped offensive linemen, defensive linemen get drafted, because they have size. And what's the one thing people like in terms of looking at defensive linemen? I was telling someone today, Dan, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you are 6'6", 300 plus pounds, let's just say you're out of high school, you've played 1 year of football, you have a higher chance of going to play at the next level in college than, say, a guy that's 5'8", played football his whole life.
Of course.
But, yeah, size means everything. Because like you said, there are coaches out there that will say, hey, I don't care that you played 1 year. I can coach you. You already have the one thing we want, and that's the physical traits.
I'll put it to you this way, and I had a college coach tell me this just the other day. If you're a 6'2", 180-pound quarterback, you got to be special, and you got to wake us up. You got to get our attention. You're 6'5", 225. You've already got my attention. I don't even need to see the tape. Big schools are willing to take an opportunity, take a chance, take a flyer on a guy who meets every box. Because if you think about it, if a coach walks into the room and his head coach asks him, hey, why did we waste a scholarship on this guy? He sucks, right? If he's 6'2", 180 or 6'1", 180 or 170, you're like, oh, man, I thought I saw something special, right? But if he's 6'5", 225, you're like, bro, he's 6'5", 225. That's why. And first of all, the head coach would even ask that question because he would know too. You know what I mean? I mean, like you said, measurables are everything. I mean, the only place, yeah, it's. Listen, they walk out there. These college scouts, you see them every day. They walk out there with their little clipboard and they're looking for things that fit the boxes. So
that's how it goes.
Exciting news to tell you whenever we get off.
I look forward to hearing that news. Let's go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. I can't do it without mentioning this guy because I think he's going to have a good
I had
career.
one more.
Yeah, one more. Hold on. Yeah. I won't wrap it up after this. We'll
Okay.
kick it over to you. Really, really excited for this man. And I think he's gonna have a good career. And I think it's for the same reason that others have said. He might be a product. Him coming to Georgia and staying at Georgia might have ended up hurting him a little bit more than him staying. And it's not a shot at Georgia. More so, I think he's going to go to the NFL and he's going to play in a system that allows him to get upfield and rush the passer freely. And I think we're going to see him thrive in that. And that's Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. He only had really one full season at Georgia. That is my guy. He's had my stamp since God knows when. I think I sent Dan a video of him last year playing Tennessee, doing something special. I was like, man, really like that guy. Finally got to see him healthy, and he produced at a high level. And just one of those guys that I don't think gets any of the credit. Got much. He would have those games where he'd have 2-3 sacks. I think he had 3 sacks versus Auburn, and everybody was talking about him. But then when he's not getting 2 or 3 sacks, nobody talks about him. And now he goes to the Minnesota Vikings in the 4th round. And like I said, it's the same discussion people have with Mykel Williams, with Trayvon Walker, with any edge rusher at Georgia is, hey, Georgia is not a see ball, go get ball edge rushing team, pass rushing team. They're not, hey, Will Anderson, you're special, dude. We're going to let you get upfield, go do what you want. Don't worry about your gap. Don't worry about your assignment. Georgia is, hey, I'm going to stay in my gap or I'm going to spike this guard so the guy next to me can go make the play. That's Georgia's system, more so than anybody else. And Georgia's one of the only schools I hear it talked about with. So I know it's not just, hey, they're copping out for these big schools who don't have the sack numbers. It is a thing. It's been around for a long time with Georgia and Kirby Smart. I think Tyrion Ingram Dawkins is going to have a better pro career than his college career because I think he's going to have more freedom to get upfield and more freedom to rush the passer, which, man, for a guy his size, you go watch him, there's a little bit of twitchiness to Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, which he put on display at the NFL Combine. But really happy for that guy. I think he's going to have a good career.
All right, this is the most head-scratching thing on the entire draft, and I can't figure this one out because I need you to tell me the answer because I can't get it, and I've listened to radio all week long, and nobody else knows the answer either. You have a wide receiver who is 6'3", 215, and he wins the Triple Crown. He's one of only 3 receivers to win the Triple Crown, which is the most receptions, the most yardage, and the most touchdowns. No. Nick Nash.
Oh.
The undrafted free agent signing by the Falcons. It blows my mind. I have no idea how the guy has 106 receptions, like 14 touchdowns, and well over 1,000 yards. He wins the Triple Crown for Division I football. He yardage, touchdowns, receptions. 6'3", 215 doesn't get drafted. That man must have ran a 4-minute 40. I can't figure it out.
I'm looking now because that's the first thing that popped in my mind. I need to go look at this guy's combine numbers.
I don't think he was invited to the combine.
He was.
Okay.
I am shocked. I'll show you why. And it's not because you think, or it's not what you think. The numbers aren't bad. 6'2", 6'2", 203, 457. With the production he had, I'm a little shocked there, Dan. Very shocked there. Especially when he ranks 14th in terms of production.
Right. I have not seen a picture of him. Is he white? No. No.
And look. He had a 6.2 graph rate, which will eventually be average starter. Which, if I am correct, that's usually a day 2, day 3 grade.
I don't get it. 4.57 is fast enough.
And then look here. Started out as a quarterback and then transitioned to receiver. And my God, did that pay off?
Bro, I don't know. I can't figure. But hey, good for the Falcons. All right, that's all I got.
Tape. I haven't seen him on tape, so I can't speak to him. But I need to go find someone who has seen him on tape because I
got nothing else.
I was thinking, maybe we're talking about a guy that ran a 4.7 and they just said nope. But he ran a 4.57, which I get it. May not be the best time. It's just a tad bit under a 4.6, but still. Wow. With that production.
Some guys
All right.
play faster.
That's the damn truth. That is the damn truth. Some guys play faster than whatever stopwatch tells you.
Guess what? If you got a dog chasing you, you're probably going to run faster than if you didn't.
Well, folks, with that being said, let's go wrap it up for episode 151 of the Top Level Talk podcast. That's Dan Kiley over there. I'm Harrison Reno. Can never get the point right on the first time reference. I believe there we go. I got a point to my left, point to my right. It's reversed on camera. We will be back next Wednesday at 7:30 here on the YouTube channel. Folks, if you're watching us on Twitter, we really do appreciate you. Twitter's always our biggest source of viewership right now, which is awesome that the Twitter feed is putting us out there. Now, I don't know if it's bots. It may very well be bots, but hey, let's do a bot test. If you are not a bot and you are a actual human viewer, hit us a like and repost on Twitter so more people can enjoy our content. More people can see Dan on solo screen. If you know, you know. We'll be back here next Wednesday at 7:30 with another edition of the Top Talk podcast. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Go Dogs.